Why would anyone let strangers bulldoze their family's land, build a glittering resort on it, and then walk away with billions instead of burning it all down? That's the question I kept asking myself when I stood on my porch, staring at a champagne cork glittering in the dirt, tossed there by a crowd of rich folks in designer sunglasses. They were toasting under a massive banner for a grand opening in my property, where my cattle used to roam. Right there, in the heart of Cloverfield County, a luxury resort had sprouted overnight, sparkling pools, tennis courts, valet parking, and Linda Harper, the HOA president, grinning like she'd won the lottery. You're probably wondering how I got here, how a pack of suburban sharks turned my quiet fields into a billionaire's playground, and why I didn't fight tooth and nail to stop them. Instead, I let them finish their game and sold it all out from under them for billions. Let me tell you how it went down. My name's Ethan Caldwell, and if you'd asked me a few years back what I loved most, I'd have said my land, no question. It wasn't just dirt and grass. It was alive, stitched together by a lazy creek and cottonwoods that whispered in the breeze. My great-grandfather bought this stretch back when Cloverfield was a speck on a map, just a dirt road and a bait shop. Through floods, droughts, and lean years, it stayed ours, a piece of earth that felt like family. When he passed, he made sure it came to me, skipping my dad's generation through some clever paperwork. I didn't just live here, I belong. For a while, the world left us alone, and life was slow and honest until it wasn't. It started with a letter, slipped between a feed catalog and a tractor ad. Gold embossed, smelling like perfume, it screamed money. Notice of Community Integration Initiative. It read. The Willow Creek Homeowners Association was expanding its reach to enhance the levying experience for nearby properties, meaning mine. I laughed it off at first. Nobody around here cared what color your barn was or how short your grass grew. It had to be a mistake. But 2 weeks later, a plastic sign appeared on my driveway. Future site of Willow Creek Beautification Project Phase 1. No warning, no permission, just a smug logo and a dead-end website. I ripped it out and burned it, but unease settled in my gut like a stone. Then came the workers' guys in vests poking at my fences, snapping photos, muttering about survey updates, before scurrying off. Another letter arrived, colder this time, a minor zoning adjustment, reclassifying my land from agricultural to community enhancement. I read it 3 times to grasp it. They could now greenlight beneficial projects without my consent, as long as enough stakeholders agreed. It was a legal backdoor, plain as day. I hired a lawyer, a grizzled guy named Tom who'd fought dirty developers before. He filed objections, demanded hearings, but the HOA played chess while we played checkers. Meetings were held at 3 a.m., notices buried in fine print, agendas posted where no one looked. It was a war of paper and patience, and they were winning. I fought anyway. Every dawn, I walked my fences, yanking up survey markers, snapping photos of every trespass with my old camera. It was my way of saying, "Not today!" But life doesn't care about your battles. My sister's wedding in Wyoming pulled me away for 2 weeks. I left my neighbor, Hank, a tough old rancher, to watch the place, locked every gate, and plastered, "No trespassing," signs everywhere. I prayed it'd hold. I was wrong. When I rolled back into my drive, the air smelled wrong, like concrete and paint. The birds were gone, replaced by the whine of machinery. I rounded the bend and hit the brakes so hard my truck skidded. Where my pasture once stretched, a concrete slab sprawled like a wound. Steel beams jutted up, wrapped in tarps, screaming, "Willow Creek Resort Va Spa!" A crane loomed over my cottonwoods, their branches hacked to stumps. Bulldozers had gutted my fences, and my creek-me silver thread was now a concrete ditch. A kid in a hard hat bounced over, all smiles and clipboard. "Morning, sir! Homeowners will be notified of benefits soon." I didn't speak. My knuckles were white on the wheel. I just reversed, not trusting myself to stay calm. Inside, I found a pile of mail-gold sealed notices of enhancement commencement, and a grand opening in VYT, none asking my permission. Hank came by that night, looking gut-punched. 3 days after I left, they'd rolled in with court papers, claiming it was all legal. When he protested, they threatened him with trespassing. My phone? No missed calls. Later, I'd learned my service was cut off the whole trip, pure coincidence, I'm sure. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at construction lights blinking like a cruel joke. I thought of my great-grandfather's hands, turning scrub into something worth fighting for. They thought I'd roll over, another Tim of progress. They thought wrong. The next weeks were hell. The HOA didn't need bulldozers anymore, they used paper. A law 500 fine for my 1960s shed, grandfathered into every county record. A law 250 fine for non-compliant landscaping, the grass their crews tore up. Another for my private property sign. Construction started at 4 a.m., jackhammers and floodlights blasting my windows. Dust choked my house. I changed air filters twice a week. Strangers trampled my garden, their tire tracks crushing my mom's old flower beds. I filed complaints, but the town clerk's office was bought, sending back canned emails about community guidelines. I was alone. One night, walking the ruined creek, I saw an oily film on the water. I scooped a sample and sent it to a lab at the AG College. The results were low, construction debris, chemical runoff, heavy metals illegal as hell. Then I found a dropped folder near the site, blueprints, approvals, and a fake environmental report, dated before the HOA's community meetings. It was plagiarized from a mall project, wrong coordinates and all. Signatures were forged, the engineer was retired, the consultant unlicensed. The community survey listed dead people. It was a scam, and I had the receipts. I could have run to court, but they wanted that the angry farmer they could paint as a fool. So I played dumb. I paid their fines, waved at their crews, joined their meetings, nodding as Linda Harper spun lies about revitalization. I volunteered for their cleanup committee, earning wary glances but disarming them with my fake smile. Behind the scenes, I rigged cameras, catching every trespass, every illegal dump into my creek. I dug through public records, finding kickbacks, shady deals, and Linda's secret stake in the resort's developer, Clover Horizon LLC. 2 board members, Greg Tate and Sarah Boone, were in on it. The HOA was a front, fleecing old-timers like me to pave their gold mine. I let them think they'd won. I smiled as Linda suggested I move somewhere suitable. Then came the Golden Boston VYT to the resort's grand opening. They'd paved my creek, cut my trees, poisoned my soil, and now wanted me to clap for their VY Tory. I laughed, tucking the VYT next to my real weapon, an 1894 covenant, found in the county archives. It guaranteed my land's protection from forced development, signed in ink older than their lies. No zoning trick could touch it without my consent, and they never had it. The grand opening was a suburban fantasy, valets, cocktail dresses, jazz drifting over cobblestone where my wheat once grew. The clubhouse gleamed, its sign boasting, Willow Creek Resort Va Spa. I walked in, denim jacket over a black shirt, the covenant under my arm. Security ignored me. I was nobody. Linda was at the podium, dripping in sequins, preaching about VY Shaun and partnership. I waited for her big finish, then climbed the stage and tapped her shoulder. She froze. I took the mic. "This is public land, or was supposed to be," I said, voice steady. "My name's Ethan Caldwell, and this land is protected by the 1894 Caldwell Covenant." I held up the folder. "It bans forced annexation, overrides zoning, and nullifies any development without my say. I never sold. I never agreed. This resort, your spa, your condos is illegal." The crowd gasped. I tossed covenant copies into the air, papers fluttering like snow. "Check the forged reports, fake approvals, and your HOA's hidden deals." Sirens wailed. Police, inspectors, and county lawyers swarmed, and I tipped them off. Linda's face crumpled. Greg tried to bolt. An officer stopped him. Sarah sank into a chair. Inspectors tested runoff, snapped photos, and shut it all down. Guests fled, champagne glasses smashing. The jazz stopped. Linda hissed, "You're ruining everything." I smiled. "No, Linda. You did that." By morning, news trucks choked the roads. Headlines screamed, "Fraud!" and environmental disaster. The resort sank into debt, its permits void. Linda quit, Greg vanished, Sarah's career tanked. The HOA folded. Developers begged me to settle. I could have raised it, sued them to dust, but I had a better idea. I met them on my land, under a tent, watching them sweat. I demanded do law $3 billion or less. They balked, but I slid out my EVY denke, toxic runoff, forged emails, illegal dumps. They caved. The wire hit my account on a Tuesday. My lawyer laughed. "You didn't win. You destroyed them." The resort sold at a loss to a group planning a nature preserve. I rebuilt my great-grandfather's house with wood and stone, let the creek run free, planted cottonwoods. A new sign stood at the road. Sold. Future site of justice. I sipped coffee on my porch, watching the sunrise, knowing some debts, when collected, taste sweeter than billions.